Roblox's movement system is fine, but if you want your game to stand out, you need something way more advanced. In this tutorial, we're going to be building a movement system inspired by games like Deepwoken with sliding, dashing, sprinting, and even double jumps. These aren't just flashy features, they will make your gameplay feel smoother, more skill-based, and way more fun. And you can easily add or remove certain features like having only the running, or having the running and the dashing. So this tutorial is for anyone, not just for people who want to have a full combat game type movement system. So by the end, you'll have a system that works smoothly together with each other feature, so there is no overlap or clunkiness. And for a quick message, you can now become a member if you'd like for some special perks and extra support. I will explain more later on in the video. And with that done, let me get into the first thing that you will have to do. Over here in your Explorer, open up Start Player Scripts, and inside of here, you just want to add a local script, like I have done here, and you can name it Movement System, or whatever you want really. And inside of this script, you want to add a module script, like this. You don't really have to rename this one, so I just named my module. And these are the two scripts that you will need for the starter player. Then, inside of server script service, you want to add one server script for the server side where we're going to be setting some values. I will get onto what this actually does later on. And finally, inside of replicated storage, you just want to add a remote event and just name it Move Me, like I've done here. This is all that you need for things to add. So now let me actually get into the first script, and the script will be the one inside of starter player script movement system. So open this up and I will go through all of this, so don't worry. First thing, at the top you want to get the replicated storage and the context action service. Context action service is basically user input service, but you can use it for mobile as well. I'm not going to get into mapping mobile keys, but I'll show you the rough idea of how you actually set up keys. And this module is the module that we have inside of the script itself. And since it's a module script, we want to make sure that we require it like this. So you require brackets, then the name of the module. So script, because it's inside of the script, and then .module, the name of the module. So if you named your module something else, you make sure that the name here is equal to what you have named the module here. Then we want to get the player and the character and the humanoid. Make sure you add all player to character added wait. So it waits until the character is fully added. And over here, we just do an extra check. If the character has died and it's re-added, then we will set the character variable up here equal to the new character that was added. And the reason we have to do this is because this is inside of starter player scripts. If this was inside of starter character scripts, then we wouldn't have to do this because it would get deleted and put back in when the new character is spawned in. Then we want to get the current state, so just blank variable. Here the active keys that you are pressing. This is so you can decide the dash direction, and I will get to that in just a minute down here. And last pressed is to keep track of the last key that you pressed. This here is for the sprinting side of things. The last time you press W, so we can do the double tap W, and the sprint threshold, so the amount of time that you have to press W 2 times for it to actually sprint. So it has to be between 2.2 seconds. Here we do a function, humanoid state change. This is to detect when you, for example, are jumping, you are free falling, or you landed. This is how you detect when your character has done a new action. You do humanoid state change, connect function, old, new. Old is the old action, and new, we don't really need to do anything with new here because we only need to check what our old action was. And this is where we're going to set the variable that we had up here. So we'll just set it to free fall, landing, or jumping, depending on what we were just doing. And this is going to be used down inside of the inputs for double jumping. So this is how we're going to decide the direction that we're actually going to be dashing in. We're going to have the vertical for the up and down, and horizontal for the left and right. So for the W and the S, that's the vertical, and the D and the A is horizontal. So obviously I can't cover everything, so I can't really cover mapping this for mobile as well. to get the proper direction. That would just be a lot. So you have to make do with this, or you can search up a tutorial or how to fully use context action service for mobile and things like that. So here we will check if the vertical is 0. So that means it's blank, you aren't going up at all. And honestly, going through this will take quite a bit and I have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna have to go through this briefly. We will check if the last key that we pressed was W, and if it was, then vertical will be equal to 1, because that means that we were moving upwards, okay? And if not, then the last press was S, that means we were moving downwards, so vertical is equal to -1, okay? Then we'll do the same for horizontal. We'll check if last pressed is D, or if it's A, then we'll set horizontal to -1 or 1. And what this will do is basically, inside of our module, we will check what the vertical is and what the horizontal is to decide which direction we're going to dash. And this is done so we can dash diagonally as well. So we can dash W and D, the between of that. So you'll be going this way, okay? Then down here, we will get the direction, and it will just set that equal to new vector 3 for the horizontal and the vertical. If the direction of magnitude is more than 0, so that means you're moving a direction, then it will return something. Otherwise, return nil. So if you're not moving, it won't dash. Now, I'm going to skip this one for just a second because I have to show you how to actually bind the inputs. This is the functions of the inputs. I'll go over that in just a second. So here you bind all the actual keys that you want to have for the different functions. So for dashing, for crouching, I didn't actually fully finish crouching and it wasn't really needed, so you can ignore that one. So how we do this is context action service, which we have up here, colon bind action, then brackets. First thing here is the name or the key for the action we're going to do. So in this case, it's a dash. Then we put the function, and honestly I forgot what this one does, but you can just read it here. It will show you. But I just set this one to false because this one's like for any extra stuff and I don't need that. And here is the key that you want to press. Here you can add as many keys as you want. So as you can see down here, I added, that wasn't for that. But yeah, you can add as many keys as you want here. So you would also have to add like enum dot. It depends what device you're trying to make it for. So you can have keypad things and button R1 for controller and stuff like that. You just add all of these here. And keep note, if you do bind action, it will override any other keys and whatever function they have. So this is why I did bind action at priority for W, because if I did just bind action and put W, then W would no longer move it forward. It would remove that function. So this is why we do bind action at priority. So now it won't do that, because here we set the priority to low, which means that we can still keep moving forward. Okay? That's what bind action at priority does. We can add a priority. So do this for all of your keys, W, A, S, and D, then sliding and then jumping. Okay? And you can just see add a priority for all of these for the ones that are already mapped to a key. So for space, which already makes you jump, we don't want to override it. So we do bind action at priority. For sliding, because nothing else is on that key, you can just do bind action. Okay? And we fire it down here because it's a function. Next is this. So inside of here, we will have all the checks for what our state is and for what to fire through to the module. Okay? We need the action name, the input state, and the object. I don't think I used the object, so you can kind of just use that. That was a bit of an extra. So we will check if the state is begin. This is how you check if you first press the key, and this is how you check if you release the key. So you do begin, and then we check what the action is. So if the action is dash, we will do X thing. If it's slide, X thing, and so on. So I'll go through this briefly. If it's dash, then we will get the dash direction from our function up here. So we'll store that inside of a variable because it returns the direction or nil if you can't dash. If dash direction, so if it's not nil, then it will fire to the module, module.dash. Okay. Then for slide, same thing, just module.slide. Then here's for W, A, S, and D. We have this for double tap W to sprint. So we'll store the current time of when we pressed W as time, and time is basically just the number of seconds since the server started. if the current time minus the last W press time is more than the sprint threshold, then it will sprint. Otherwise, it will set the, oh no, there is no otherwise, then just at the end, it will set the last time you press W to the current time. So you can check how much time has passed since you last pressed W. That's kind of how it works. For jump, we'll do the same thing. We'll check if the state is free fall and whatnot, and then we'll fire to the module for double jumping. Otherwise, it will just do the normal jump, and yeah, not the double jump one. If you're crouching, as I said, I didn't add this one, so you can just remove this, like so. And now for the end, so this is if you stopped sprinting, you can just read the rest. You just check if the action name is W, or if it's A or S and D, then we'll just check if it's W, module.sprint, player stop. So that's basically it for the client script, and this is already half of everything done. Now we have to go inside of here and have to go through all of these. So as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to have all of these. So this is for anyone. If you don't want to have double jumping, you can remove that. If you don't want to have crouching, which I already said I was going to remove, but you don't have to have that. So if you just want to have the sprint, you can only make it fire the sprint module. So you don't have to add all the extra ones like I added here. Because it's in a module, you can easily just decide to remove or add new ones if you want. So, a lot of stuff to go in. At the top, we want RS for run service. Then we want replicate storage as well. Then we want to have some constant values. So base speed will be equal to 12 or whatever you want. Then the speed multiplier for sprinting, I put it at 1.5. Crouch speed, I already said I'll take that out because I didn't finish it. Jump power or jump height, it depends which one you want to use for your game. I use jump power here. Then gravity force. This is because for the dashing, you're going to actually have gravity pulling you down. So you can change this value to whatever you want. If you want the gravity to be stronger, or if you want the gravity to be non-existent, you can do that. You can just set it to 0 if you don't want the gravity to be there. This is the dash duration and the dash distance. You can play around with all of these. And this is for the sliding. So yeah, you can just play around with all of these. Then here we'll just have a simple table for quickly being able to select the things you want. So if you want like types or crouching, there you go. You can just type it out like that and it auto-fills for you rather than you having to do crouching like this and making sure you spell it correctly. So that's what the table's for. Then here we have a table for the cooldowns. Self-explanatory, just change the cooldowns in here to whatever you want. Then here we have a empty table for the last thing that you've used. I will show you what this is used for when we go down to the functions we have to actually check every single time. And if you want sliding to only work if you're not sprinting, or if you want dashing to not work if you're sprinting, you can mess around with that depending on what was last used, which is handled in this function. So in this function, what do we have? We have the player and the action. The key will be to the player, the user ID, and so on, because we want to add that inside of the last used table. And we're doing it by user ID because that's the most secure way, since user ID doesn't get changed. And last will be equal to last used key. So last used player, whatever you last used. If last and the time minus last, I explained what time was. Minus last time used. It's similar to what we did for the double tap W. So you just check how much time has passed. If it's less than cooldowns, or if the cooldown hasn't passed, then it will return false. So you cannot do the action. So you can't dash, basically. And if not, meaning you can use it, then you will store the new thing you just did as time. And you will return true, so you can do the action. Now, can perform is a bit different. This one is for more specific things. So if you want to change the things that you're allowed to do if you're sliding, crouching, dashing, double jumping, and so on, then you mess around in here. And you notice that we're using attributes here. We will actually check if you can do certain things. Now that's where the server script that I mentioned earlier is going to come in. We're going to be setting attributes inside of the server script when we are actually, dashing, or we're sliding, or we're doing anything like that. so the server actually has a correct record of what you are doing, in case you need to check it inside of other scripts to see if you're sliding, dashing, and so on. So here we will just get all of the attributes for the sliding, sprinting, and so on. And here we return different things depending on what action you are currently doing. I have to kind of move things along. So let's get into the dashing. So this is a dash script. Now there's quite a lot here. So player and the direction. The direction is the thing that we sent through from the local script for the up, left, and down, and right. If not player or not can use dash. So here we check if you can use a dash. Or not direction, then return end. So if none of these are here, then return end. Then we get the character, which is the player.character. If not character, then return end. Then we get the humanoid and humanoid root part. If not either of those, return end. And here we fire to the server for actually setting the values. Now I will quickly go through this because it's a very, very simple script. In the server script that we added earlier, this is all you have to do. We'll have another table in here for cooldowns, which I actually didn't end up doing because I was going to have this video linked to the module that I made in my previous video, but that would have just taken way too long to explain and go through, and I can't have all my videos being 40 minutes long. So yeah, basically what you do in here is you just receive through the remote, replicated storage, the movement, the remote inside of replicated storage that we added earlier, the on server event, connect function, player, message, and then the value. Same checks here, if not character, return end. And then all we do is for the character, we set the attribute of the message to the value, which would mean we will set the attribute of types.dashing, which we have up here. So we would set the attribute of dashing like this. Dashing would be equal to true. That's how that works. So now the server knows what you are doing, and you can check it inside of other scripts. Then we get the dash direction, which is basically the way that your humanoid root part is facing, based on the world space from the direction that we sent through. It's just, will take kind of a long time to explain. So here you go. Dash direction is vector3.new based on the dash direction.x and the z. If it's more than 0, as we had inside of the local script over there. If it's less than 0, then return end. Dash direction is dash direction.unit, so we get just a flat number. Then here we get the elapsed time, or how much time has passed. This is because we're going to use run service. So then we get the dash speed, which I didn't even use that here. Anyway, we don't need that. So run service bind to render step, and in here we will have the key for it. So this is important because you can see here we can actually access it from other places to stop the run service, and this will be done inside of only here for this, but for the slide we're going to have it stop it inside of the jump function, so you cancel the slide by jumping. I will show you that in just a minute. So we get the key and we'll set it equal to dash step underscore .player.user_id, and priority is character value, so on. Delta time is so we make sure that you can't increase the dash distance just by increasing your frames or things like that. So it says it's just a locked value. Here we check if the elapsed time is more than the dash duration. If it is, then we will unbind it from render step, which means we will stop this from running. If not, then we will constantly update our direction. We'll constantly update the humanoid root part's velocity to vector3.new, and the values that we have, you can just read it. I can't explain too much because I have to move on. This video is getting a bit long. Sliding, slide function, it's basically the same thing. So just look through this. We will set the humanoid walk speed to 0, so you don't keep walking while you are sliding. Then we'll fire to the server sliding true and sprinting nil. So if you are sprinting, it will remove that. Elapsed time and then the speed multiplier. This is because we're going to reduce the distance that you move based on how long it's been. Like how, for example, in Deepwoken, when you're sliding, after a bit of time, it will decrease how fast you slide. but you are still sliding, you know? You aren't just moving a constant speed. So same thing, bind to render step, slide step this time, not dash step. .play.userID, same thing here. If the duration is that's past the more than slide duration, then they will unbind it, so it will stop the slide. They will set your movement speed back to the base speed, and it will fire nil for sliding into our subscript, so it will change the value. And velocity is going to be just equal to 0. So it will basically stop any previous velocity that you had. And auto rotate, you don't need to actually have this here. I originally wanted to make it so you don't have the ability to rotate, but now you do. If not, so that means the slide is still continuing. Some math, and pretty much you can read through this. We're going to change the distance that we move exactly like we did inside of the other one, by just changing the velocity. Though it's a bit different because it's got some other stuff in here, as you can see. Anyway, next, the jump. As I mentioned, as you can see here, you will be able to unbind it from the render step when you jump, so you can cancel the slide if you decide to jump. Same things up here as before, and same things here. You'll fire to the server for cancelling the slide, so setting sliding to nil, and we've removed the crouching because I didn't end up doing that. Then we have double jump. So, oh, and yeah, you do need to make sure you have all the can uses properly there. I don't know if I ever actually used can before. I think I originally intended to have that for the crouching. But yeah, you don't really need to worry about the can perform, I guess. So, same things here as before. Then we will fire to the server again for double jumping, set it equal to true. Root, which is humanoid root part. I could just change it to humanoid root part right now, I guess. There we go, humanoid root part. Humanoid root part dot velocity is equal to vector.new. Same thing as the other ones, but this time everything will just be equal to what it currently is, but the jump power will be equal to whatever we set up here. So an extra jump height. So you can actually change how high you want your second jump to be, your double jump. So it doesn't have to be just the basic jump height that you'd have for a normal jump. And after 0.3 seconds, we will set double jumping equal to nil. Finally, for the sprint, we will have same things as before. Then we'll check what the decision is. If the decision is start, then we'll fire to the server sprinting true, crouching nil. Remember, we can remove crouching. Humanoid.walk speed is equal to base speed times the sprint speed multiplier. This is if you have stopped sprinting, and else would be if you stop sprinting. We will check if you're crouching, and I can remove that because that's not an issue right now. Then we'll fire to the server for sprinting nil to remove sprinting as the attribute, and then we'll set your walk speed back to the base speed. And that is it.